My name is Mina Farouk, and I'm 52 years old. I live in a modest, cream-colored house on Oakwood Lane in Stoneford, a quiet and peaceful town nestled in the hills of Kentucky. Stoneford isn't big or fancy, just a place with winding roads, old oak trees, and folks who wave at you even if they don't know your name. For me, it's home. It's where I've raised my 3 kids, tended my garden, and held tight to my faith as a Muslim. I've been a Muslim my whole life. My parents came to America from Jordan before I was born, and they taught me everything: how to pray, how to read the Quran, how to live right by Allah. Every morning, I wake up early, before the sun even thinks about rising, to pray Fajr. I roll out my mat in the living room, face Mecca, and whisper my prayers while the house is still asleep. It's my favorite time of day, when everything feels calm and close to God. After that, I start my routine. I make breakfast, usually eggs, toast, and tea with a sprinkle of cardamom, just like my mom used to. My husband, Jamal, comes downstairs first. He's 55, with a scruffy beard and a quiet way about him. He works at the grocery store in town, fixing things and helping folks pick out supplies. Then come the kids: Rima, who's 20 and studying at the community college; Jalal, 18 and always glued to his video games; and little Aziza, 12, who loves drawing flowers and asking big questions. We eat together, laughing and talking about whatever's on our minds. Once they're off, Jamal to work, the kids to school, I get ready for my day. I'm a seamstress, and I run a small shop called Mina's Stitches out of a rented space downtown. I sew dresses, mend pants, and sometimes make prayer rugs for the mosque. People in Stoneford know me as the lady who can fix anything with a needle and thread. They smile when I walk in wearing my hijab, and I like that. It's a chance to show them who I am, what I believe. After work, I head to our mosque. It's not much, just a plain brick building with a green dome and a sign that says Stoneford Islamic Center. Inside, it's warm and welcoming. I help out where I can, teaching the girls Quran on weekends, cooking for potlucks, or cleaning up after prayers. Imam Harith runs the place. He's a short man with a big voice and a bigger heart. He always says, "Mina, you're the glue that keeps us together." I blush when he says that, but it makes me proud. Lately, though, I've been feeling off. Not sick exactly, just heavy. My hands shake sometimes when I sew, and my chest gets tight like someone's squeezing it. I tell myself it's nothing. I'm too busy to be sick, too busy with the kids, the shop, the mosque. Jamal notices, though. One night, as we're washing dishes, he says, "You look tired, Mina. Maybe see a doctor?" I laugh it off. "I'm fine," I say. "Just need more tea." But then came the day everything changed. It was a chilly Tuesday in October, the kind where the air smells like leaves and wood smoke. I'd been working all morning at the shop, stitching a wedding dress for a girl named Emily. She wasn't Muslim, but she liked my work. The dress was white with tiny silver beads, and I was proud of how it was turning out. Around noon, I decided to take a break and dye some fabric in the back room. I'd been experimenting with natural dyes: turmeric for yellow, beets for red. Today, I wanted to try indigo. I set up my supplies: a big metal pot, water, the indigo powder I'd ordered online. I filled the pot, turned on the old gas stove, and started stirring in the powder. The smell was sharp, earthy, like wet soil after rain. I opened the window to let some air in, but the room still felt stuffy. As I stirred, my chest tightened again, worse this time. I ignored it, focusing on the deep blue swirling in the water. Then the stove made a funny noise, a little hiss, like a snake. I leaned closer to check, and that's when it happened. A spark jumped from the burner, hit the gas that must have been leaking, and boom! A fireball exploded right in my face. I screamed as heat swallowed me whole. My arms flew up, my hijab caught fire, and I stumbled back, crashing into the table. Pain seared through my skin, my lungs burned like I was breathing flames, and the room spun. I don't know how long I lay there, the fire roaring around me. I heard glass shatter, shelves collapse, fabric crackling as it burned. My body felt like it was melting, but my mind was screaming, "Allah, save me." Then, through the smoke, I saw a figure, Imam Harith, bursting in with a fire extinguisher. He'd been next door at the bakery and heard the blast. He sprayed white foam everywhere, yelling my name, but I couldn't answer. The pain was too much. My vision blurred, my chest stopped heaving, and everything went black. I thought, this is it. I'm dying. But I was wrong. What came next was something I never expected: something that would turn my world upside down. When the blackness took me, I thought it was the end. No more pain, no more fire, just nothing. But then I felt a tug like a rope pulling me up through water. My eyes opened, not my real eyes, but something deeper, like my soul waking up. I wasn't in the shop anymore. The smoke, the heat, the crashing shelves, all gone. Instead, I stood on a wide, golden plain that stretched forever under a sky so bright it hurt to look at. I glanced down at myself. My hands weren't burned. My hijab was back, clean and soft, not a singe on it. I touched my face, no scars, no pain. I felt light, like a feather floating on a breeze. Where am I? I wondered. Was this Jannah, the paradise I'd prayed for all my life? But something felt off. There was no one to greet me, no rivers of milk or honey, no voices calling my name. Ahead, a shimmering light flickered, like a candle in the wind. I walked toward it, my feet barely touching the ground. The closer I got, the more it grew, until it wasn't just light, it was a vision, a window opening right in front of me. Inside it, I saw a man. He was tall, with a face full of sorrow, standing in a dark place. Shadows twisted around him, and I heard whispers, low, angry voices that made my skin prickle. "Who are you?" I asked, but my voice didn't echo like it should have. The man didn't answer. He pointed down, and the vision shifted. Below him, a pit opened up, glowing red like the fire that had swallowed me. Screams rose from it. Horrible, endless screams that clawed at my heart. People were down there, their bodies twisting in flames that never stopped burning. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The vision zoomed in, and I saw faces, men, women, some young, some old. Their eyes were wide with terror, their mouths open in cries I could feel in my bones. One woman reached up, her hands black and blistered, begging for help. But the flames pulled her back, and she vanished into the heat. My stomach twisted. Is this hell? I thought. I'd read about it in the Quran, Jahannam, the place of punishment, but this felt different, heavier, like a truth I'd never faced. The man in the vision turned his sad eyes to me. He didn't speak, but I heard words in my head clear as a bell. This is forever. This is real. Then the vision snapped shut, and I stumbled back, my breath coming fast. The golden plain was still there, but now I felt a chill, like the warmth had been sucked away. Another light flared up, this time to my right. I didn't want to look. I was scared of what I'd see, but my feet moved on their own. This vision was brighter, softer. Inside it, I saw a city made of gold, its walls sparkling like diamonds. People walked there, smiling, their faces glowing with peace. They wore white robes, and some had light shining from their hands. Music floated through the air, not like anything I'd heard in Stoneford, but pure, like water running over stones. A woman in the vision caught my eye. She was older, with kind wrinkles around her eyes. She knelt by a stream, dipping her hands in water that sparkled like stars. She looked up, right at me, and smiled. My heart jumped. Does she see me? I thought. Then the words came again, not from her mouth, but inside me. This is the reward for the true path. The vision faded, and I stood there, shaking. Two places, one of fire and pain, one of light and joy. My mind raced. I'd always believed in heaven and hell, but seeing them like this, so real, so close, made my chest ache. I'd spent my life praying, fasting, giving to the poor. Wasn't that enough? Why was I being shown this? Before I could think too long, the ground rumbled. A third light blazed up, bigger than the others. This time, the vision didn't wait for me to walk to it. It rushed at me, swallowing me whole. Suddenly, I was standing in a courtroom, huge and grand, with walls of white stone. A throne towered in the center, empty but pulsing with power. Around it stood figures, tall, shining, their faces hidden in light. They didn't move, but I felt their eyes on me, weighing me. A book floated in front of the throne, its pages flipping on their own. My name echoed through the room, Mina Farouk, loud and deep, like thunder. The pages stopped, and I saw my life written there, every prayer, every kind word, every time I helped someone. But then the ink turned red, and darker things appeared. Moments I'd snapped at my kids, times I'd skipped prayers because I was tired, little lies I'd told to make life easier. My cheeks burned with shame. One of the shining figures stepped forward. It didn't speak with a mouth, but its voice filled the air. Judgment comes for all. The path you walk decides your place. I wanted to argue, to say I'd tried my best, but my tongue felt stuck. The vision shifted again, and I saw myself, my old self, in Stoneford, kneeling in prayer. But then a shadow fell over me, and the words came, "Not all paths lead to the light." The courtroom vanished, and I was back on the golden plain, my knees weak, my head spun with questions. What path? I'd followed Islam my whole life, 5 prayers a day, Ramadan, Hajj when I was 30. Wasn't that the right way? But the visions wouldn't stop. They kept coming, pulling me deeper into something I didn't understand yet. The golden plain stretched out around me, endless and quiet, but my heart was pounding like a drum. Those visions, the fire, the golden city, the courtroom, kept spinning in my head. I wanted answers, but all I got was more questions. What did that voice mean? Not all paths lead to the light. I'd spent 52 years believing I was on the right one. Now I wasn't so sure. Before I could catch my breath, the air shimmered again. Another light flared up, this time so bright I had to shield my eyes. When it dimmed, I was standing in a desert, sand stretching out forever, the sun blazing down like a hammer. My throat felt dry just looking at it. In the distance, I saw a man walking toward me. He wore a long robe, his face hidden under a hood. He carried a staff, tapping it into the sand with every step. When he got close, he stopped. He didn't look up, but I felt him watching me. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaky. He didn't answer. Instead, he waved his staff, and the sand parted like water. A vision rose up from the ground, a city, old and dusty, with domed roofs and minarets piercing the sky. I knew that shape. It was Mecca, the holiest place I'd ever been. But something was wrong. The city flickered, and shadows crept over it. The Kaaba stood in the center, black and strong, but cracks ran through its walls. People prayed around it, their voices loud and desperate, but the sky above turned dark. A voice, not the man's, but one I felt in my chest, whispered, "Deception blinds the seeker." Then the vision shattered, sand exploding everywhere, and I fell to my knees. The man with the staff was gone. I scrambled up, brushing sand off my hands, my mind racing. Deception? Was that about Mecca? About my faith? I'd always believed Muhammad was the last prophet, that his words were truth. But that vision, it felt like a warning, like something I'd trusted was crumbling. The desert faded, and I was back on the golden plain. My legs shook, but I didn't have time to rest. Another light sparked, softer this time, and pulled me in. Now I stood by a river, wide and clear, with green hills rolling behind it. A group of people knelt on the bank, their hands cupped as they drank. Their robes were white, their faces calm. One man stood apart, holding a staff like the desert man, but his robe glowed like the sun. He turned to me, and I saw his eyes, deep, kind but sharp, like they could see right through me. He didn't speak, but the vision moved. The river split, and on one side I saw the golden city again, bright, peaceful, full of joy. On the other, the fiery pit roared back to life, flames licking the air. The man raised his staff, and words burned into my mind. One path leads to life, the other to death. I stared at the two scenes, my heart twisting. The people by the river stood and walked toward the golden city, their steps sure and light. But then I saw others, people I recognized. Faces from the mosque, my neighbors in Stoneford, even Imam Harith. They stumbled toward the fire, their hands reaching out as the flames swallowed them. I screamed, no, but my voice was lost in the rush of the river. The vision snapped shut, and I collapsed on the golden plain, tears streaming down my face. I didn't want to believe it. My friends, my family, headed for that pit. It couldn't be true. But the weight of it pressed on me, heavy and real. I wiped my eyes, trying to make sense of it all, when the ground shook again. A new light blazed, and this time I was in a garden. Flowers bloomed everywhere, red, yellow, purple, smelling sweeter than anything I'd ever known. A path wound through it, made of smooth white stones. At the end stood a gate, tall and golden, with light pouring through the bars. I took a step, but a figure appeared, another shining one, like in the courtroom. Its voice boomed, "Only the faithful enter here." The gate creaked open, and I peeked inside. There was the golden city again, closer now. I saw people laughing, children running, a peace so deep I could feel it in my bones. But then the gate slammed shut, and the figure pointed behind me. I turned, and the fiery pit yawned wide, its heat blasting my face. Faces twisted in the flames. People I'd known, people I'd loved. The voice said, "Choose wisely, for the end is set." I stumbled back, my breath ragged. The garden vanished, and I was alone on the plain again. My mind felt like it was splitting. Everything I'd believed, my prayers, my life, was it all wrong? The visions wouldn't let me rest. They kept coming, pushing me towards something I couldn't name yet. The golden plain felt smaller now, like it was closing in around me. My chest heaved, my thoughts a jumbled mess. Visions of fire, light, cities, and gates. They swirled in my head, pulling me apart. I wanted to scream, to run, but there was nowhere to go. The air crackled, and I knew another vision was coming. I braced myself, my hands clenched into fists. This time, the light didn't just appear, it exploded, blinding me. When I could see again, I stood on a cliff, high above a churning sea. Waves crashed below, white and wild, spraying mist into the air. The wind whipped my hijab, and I grabbed it to keep it from flying off. Ahead, a narrow bridge stretched across a gap in the cliff, swaying over the drop. It was made of rope and wood, creaking with every gust. On the other side, I saw the golden city, closer than ever, its walls gleaming like the sun. Voices drifted from it, soft and happy, calling me forward. But behind me, the fiery pit roared, its heat licking at my back. I could hear the screams again, sharper now, like knives in my ears. My stomach twisted. I had to choose, forward or back. I took a step toward the bridge, my foot shaking. A figure appeared at the far end, a woman, tall and glowing, her robe white as snow. She didn't speak, but her eyes locked on mine, steady and sure. Words bloomed in my mind, cross if you seek the truth. I looked down at the bridge. It wobbled, the ropes fraying, the wood cracked. Below the sea roared, hungry and dark. I glanced back at the pit. Shadows moved in the flames, shapes of people I knew. My cousin Najla, who died years ago, reached out, her face twisted in pain. Imam Harth was there too, his beard singed, his mouth open in a silent cry. My heart broke. Why are they there, I thought. They'd been good, faithful, just like me. The woman's voice came again. The path you walked led them here. I froze. My path? Islam? The faith I'd lived by, taught my kids, shared with my community. Was it wrong? I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. No, I whispered. It can't be. But the vision wouldn't let me argue. The bridge creaked, urging me forward. I took another step, then another, my hands gripping the ropes. The wind howled, pushing me back, but I kept going. Halfway across, the boards groaned, and one snapped under my foot. I screamed, clutching the ropes as my leg dangled over the drop. The sea churned below, ready to swallow me. I pulled myself up, my arms shaking, and kept moving. The woman waited, her glow brighter now. When I finally stumbled onto solid ground, the bridge collapsed behind me, crashing into the sea. There was no going back. I fell to my knees, gasping, and looked up at her. She didn't smile, but her eyes softened. See now, her voice said, and the vision shifted. I was in the Golden City. Streets of crystal stretched out, sparkling under a sky that never dimmed. People walked by, men, women, children, all radiant, their faces full of peace. I saw a man give bread to a child, both of them laughing. A woman sang by a fountain, her voice like a lullaby. Everywhere I looked, there was love, light, life. Then the scene changed. I stood in a grand hall, its ceiling so high I couldn't see the top. A throne sat at the end, empty but alive with power. Around it, books floated, their pages flipping. One opened in front of me, and I saw my name again, Mina Farouk. But this time, the pages were blank. A voice thundered, "Your end is not yet written. Return and warn them." The hall dissolved, and I was back by the cliff, the woman still beside me. She pointed to the pit, now far below. I saw more faces, my husband Jamal, my kids Rima, Jalal, Aziza, all screaming in the flames. My knees buckled. "No," I cried, "not them." The woman's voice was firm. "Their path is yours unless you change it." The vision shattered, and I was on the golden plain again, sobbing. My family, in that fire? Because of me? I'd raised them Muslim, taught them to pray, to follow the Quran. Was it all a lie? The weight crushed me, heavier than the fire in my shop. I didn't want to believe it, but the visions felt too real to ignore. One last light flared, dazzling. I stood in a meadow, blossoms quivering in a breeze. A clear path led to a gate, the same radiant portal from the vision. Beyond it, I glimpsed the holy city, its brilliance drawing me near. A voice, yet firm, declared, "Salvation is through Jesus Christ, equal to the Father and Spirit. Embrace faith, sacraments, and works." Then the meadow vanished, and I felt myself pulled downward. The golden plain slipped away. Pain crashed into me, sharp, burning, alive. I gasped, my eyes flying open. I was back in Stoneford, lying on a stretcher, smoke stinging my lungs. Imam Harith's voice cut through the haze. "She's alive!" Paramedics swarmed around me, their hands pressing on my burns. I wanted to scream, to tell them what I'd seen, but my throat was raw. As they lifted me into the ambulance, the visions burned in my mind: fire, light, judgment. I knew I couldn't stay silent. I had to warn them, all of them. The ambulance ride was a blur: sirens wailing, voices shouting, machines beeping. My body hurt everywhere, like the fire was still eating me alive. But my mind was sharper than ever, replaying the visions over and over. The pit of flames, the golden city, the bridge, I couldn't shake them. They weren't dreams. They were real, and they'd changed me. I woke up in the hospital 2 days later, tubes in my arms, bandages on my face and hands. The doctor, a tall man with gray hair, said I was lucky. The fire had burned 30% of my body, wrecked my shop, but I'd survived. Jamal sat by my bed, his eyes red from crying. Rima, Jalal, and Aziza huddled close, their faces pale. "We thought we lost you," Jamal whispered, squeezing my hand. I tried to smile, but my lips cracked. "I'm here," I croaked. They didn't know what I'd seen, what I'd been told. How could I tell them? My family, my whole life, built on a faith I wasn't sure of anymore. The doctor left, and I looked at them, my husband, my kids, and saw the pit again, their screams echoing in my head. I had to say something. "Jamal," I started, my voice weak. "I saw things when I was gone." He frowned, leaning closer. "What things?" I took a deep breath, wincing as my chest burned. "Heaven, hell, a warning." Rima's eyes widened. "Mama, what do you mean?" I swallowed hard. "I saw fire, eternal fire, and people I love trapped in it. I saw a city of light too, but we're not on the path to get there." Jamal pulled back, his face tight. "Mina, you were hurt. It was a dream." I shook my head, tears spilling. "No, it was real. I have to warn everyone." He didn't argue, but I saw doubt in his eyes. The kids looked scared, confused. I couldn't blame them. I barely understood it myself. Days passed, and I got stronger. The burns healed slow, leaving scars on my arms and neck. The hospital let me go home after a week, and Stoneford welcomed me back with food and flowers. Imam Harith came by, his smile warm. "Allah protected you," he said. I nodded, but inside I churned. Protected me for what? To tell the truth? One night I called a meeting at the mosque. My hands shook as I stood in front of everyone. Friends, neighbors, people I'd known forever. "I died in that fire," I said, my voice steadying. "And I saw what comes after. There's a judgment, a fire that never stops, and a city of peace. But we're not on the right path to reach it." Murmurs rippled through the room. Imam Harith stood, his brow furrowed. "Mina, what are you saying?" I met his eyes. "I saw you in the fire, Imam. I saw my family there. We've been deceived. There's only one true path, and it's not what we've followed." The room erupted, shouts, gasps, some walking out. Jamal grabbed my arm, his face hard. "Stop this," he hissed. But I couldn't. I kept talking, telling them about the visions, the bridge, the warning. Half the mosque left in anger. Me, the other half stayed, eyes wide, asking questions I didn't have all the answers to. Word spread fast. People called me crazy, a traitor. My shop sat empty. No one wanted stitches from a heretic. Jamal barely spoke to me, and the kids tiptoed around, unsure. But some listened. A few women from the mosque came secretly, whispering, "Tell us more." I did, night after night, sharing the light I'd seen, the fire I'd escaped. I don't know what's next. My scars ache, my family's torn, and Stoneford's divided. But I can't stop. The visions won't let me. I have to show them the path, the one I crossed that bridge to find, before it's too late. Her story's too powerful to miss. Like this video, subscribe now, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another incredible journey like Mina's.